This is why our Lord says, right, unless you forgive your brother from the heart, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. How do you deal with a person who's wronged you? That's an issue that comes up a lot. Because let's face it, in the course of life, there are situations that we all encounter where someone has said something very derogatory about us, they've acted uncharitably or unjustly towards us. And even though maybe the situation has eventually resolved itself, even seeing that person's name in an email or in a group chat, immediately this anger arises in us and this kind of annoyance or disturbance starts swelling up in us. And we begin to realize, this is holding me back. Okay, so towards the end of this video, I'm going to get towards the ultimate solution, which is learning to forgive and letting go. But in the interim, how do we get to that piece? Let's start with a few basics. First, we have to understand that every single human person we're dealing with in this life has deficits, wounds, and misperceptions. That's just life. People see things the way they see, and they'll act the way they're going to act. And we can't control what people say or how they think or how they react. We don't have control over those things necessarily. It's very rare that we really have that kind of influence. The other thing, too, is that we also have to agree that and concede and accept that there may be circumstances in this life that will never be resolved, that we will really only get resolution towards that injustice in the next life. And, that's when people say if they experience an injustice or they see an injustice happen and they know the person who perpetrated the injustice is going to get away with it, people will say sort of under their breath, oh, they'll get theirs, which means maybe not in this life, but in the next, where in front of the just judge, our Lord Jesus Christ, every dispute, every injustice is going to be made all right. So that also has to be in the back of our minds as we're considering how to move forward. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you to collaborate with us in our work of priestly formation here at St. Patrick's Seminary by making a donation using the link below. Thanks and God bless. But then there's also our own personal deficits, right? We have our own deficits and our own wounds. And certain people and the way they act towards us, to one person may be rather benign, but to us, it's a deep offense. And that's always a little bit mysterious because we all come into these situations with different backgrounds, different baggage, different unresolved hurts. And sometimes individuals, without them even knowing, are triggers for those things. And we also have to be cognizant of that. And that's a lot of deep self-awareness that comes out of a life of prayer. It can also help be something that can be dealt with in spiritual direction. It can also be dealt with, and I think very constructively so, with a good psychotherapist or a counselor who can help you see these things. But at the end, what has to happen in order for you to experience the release that is necessary for that injustice to somewhat resolve itself in your own life is forgiveness. You may not be able to forgive that person to their face because simply interacting with them may be an occasion of sin or a cause for even more angst or more conflict. But this is why our Lord says, right, unless you forgive your brother from the heart, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And I'm so glad the Lord said from the heart, because sometimes those forgivenesses need to occur internally in a conversation with the Lord. And I know persons who have experienced this, right? They were wronged by another person. They're never going to get resolution in this life. And it was holding them back. And then when they came to a place of forgiveness from the heart, suddenly mention of that person's name, seeing their name in an email, or their name coming up in a conversation didn't have the same effect. I find this to be particularly true with individuals, for instance, who've gone through very, very difficult and nasty divorces. Their feelings towards their ex-spouse are usually not great. And it's very hard for them to arrive at a place of reconciliation. I mean, that's probably in part why the divorce happened in the first place. It can't just be resolved for some reason, sadly. But then that person who's been offended carries that weight of that anger and that vitriol for sometimes years, even decades. And until they arrive at a place of forgiveness and uniting their sufferings to the crucified one who forgave his persecutors from the cross, do they come to a place of real peace and resolution, at least in this life for now, even if the circumstances of the injustice are not really resolved in this life. So is it possible? Oh, yes, for sure. And I've seen it happen many times over. And what a moment of great spiritual growth and progress for that individual, because they were able to sort of see a wider lens and picture. In fact, people I know who have dealt with this issue sometimes say, all the suffering that I endured for that lack of forgiveness, in a certain sense, was a penance for me, and penance that I needed to do in this life for my own personal sins. It's not that even the penance that I need to do is related to the actual injustice in question, but I could see how I could offer that up as a way of uniting myself more closely to the Lord, who the most innocent of innocents received the most ignominious of persecution, sufferings, and death. So this is sort of the depth and the profundity of the Paschal mystery, the cross, right? Because it goes to show us that the Lord entered into the injustices of injustices, which is man killing God on Good Friday. And that's what he has done for us. So if you're struggling with how to deal with someone who's wronged you, perhaps these comments have been of help and hope that you too arrive at a place of peace and reconciliation with the Lord, and even privately with yourself as you try to forgive your brother from the heart. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and others we provide here at St. Patrick's Seminary, please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thanks and God bless.